Many things about culture. Jewish culture, Greek culture, very, very important in interpreting the Scripture. The culture of the mystery religions, the culture of the Pharisees, the culture of the Sadducees, the Romans, the whole situation there. The culture around Israel, the polytheism, the polytheism meaning the many god pagans, the culture of Baal worship, all of that stuff that surrounds the biblical data is part of understanding the framework in which language exists and in which stories are told. Thirdly, the geographical gap, the geography gap. Very important to understand something about that. It's not quite as compelling as the others, but it is compelling to some degree to be able to identify the scenery itself, the actual scenery that's going on. For example, Jesus is saying, look at the fields for they're white unto harvest. What's going on there? What does he mean by that? Well, there's a marvelous scene there as the grain has reached a certain level at that time of the year in that part of the world. And on the backside of the grain comes the people from the towns in their white garb, and they look like white heads on the growing grain and appear to be a harvest. And Jesus uses that as a metaphor for the need to harvest the souls of those people. So there's something about the agrarian geography, something about the fact that the hillsides of Palestine were used for vineyards and the fields were used for grain, and something about understanding what it means to go up to Jerusalem and go down to Jericho, and it's something about geography very, very important. You understand much about the culture of the Bible. You understand much about the geography of the Bible, and then you're going to get to understanding the fourth point, which is the history, the plot itself. You have to close those gaps. Now let's talk about those four gaps. The language gap, that gives you the speech. The culture gap gives you the customs and the idioms. The geography gaps creates the scenery, the actual scenario around it. And the history gap is the plot. What's going on historically around that? What is the context of history? I have found through the years that spending a maximum amount of time on these matters is crucial to all effective Bible understanding. People often ask me, how long does it take me to put a sermon together? Well, the truth of the matter is, to actually put down an outline and to write down some notes and to bring them up here and present them to you, I might spend an hour doing that, but it could take me 30 hours to do what I just described to you as closing those four gaps. Because once those gaps are closed and you now have a living scene, you understand the language, you understand the culture, customs that inform that language, you've created the scene and you've got the plot, then the passage just kind of falls off the tree. It becomes very apparent what it means when you've reconstructed all of that. And frankly, that's the fun, that's the exhilaration of Bible study for me, is recreating that. Many things about culture. Jewish culture, Greek culture, very, very important in interpreting the Scripture. The culture of the mystery religions, the culture of the Pharisees, the culture of the Sadducees, the Romans, the whole situation there. The culture around Israel, the polytheism, the polytheism meaning the many god pagans, the culture of Baal worship, all of that stuff that surrounds the biblical data is part of understanding.